All right, team, welcome to another episode of the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Matt Hamilton. Delighted to have your company with me once again for a discussion today on the topic of leadership without the title. Now, maybe you found yourself in this situation before where your teammates or people within your business have looked to you as a leader, even though you don't have the title, you don't have the paycheck, and you don't have the benefits that go with that role. And you might have been conflicted about how to view this and what to think of it. So today we're going to get into a little bit of a conversation on that topic and delve a little bit under the surface into what a leader really is. And to help us set the scene, as we often do, we're going to delve back into some recent history, this time back to the early 2010s. And we're going to have a look at the story of a gentleman called Tristan Harris, who was in tech and had quite an impact, even though he wasn't officially a leader. So without further ado, here we go. In the early 2010s, amid the fast-paced corridors of Google's headquarters, Tristan Harris wasn't a top executive or public figure. He held a modest title, design ethicist, in a company known more for innovation than introspection. But even without a lofty role, Tristan began to see something troubling. The very platforms being built were designed to capture attention, not to respect it. He noticed how apps and websites were subtly manipulating users, nudging them to scroll longer, click more, and become ever more glued to their screens. While others celebrated user engagement, Tristan felt a growing concern that technology was quietly steering people's behaviour in ways that they didn't fully understand. Rather than stay silent on the topic, he created a compelling presentation inside Google titled "A Call to Minimize Distraction and Respect Users' Time." It was widely shared among employees, sparking internal conversations about ethical design. Though he had no official power to change company policies, people began to take note and listen. Colleagues, industry insiders, and even competitors started to see him as a moral compass in an industry often driven by profit and growth alone. Eventually, Tristan left Google, but not the fight. He founded the Center for Humane Technology and became a public voice calling for reform. His ideas took root, influencing policy discussions, inspiring tech workers, and reaching millions through The Social Dilemma, a Netflix documentary that helped to bring his message to a global audience. Through passion, clarity, and conviction, not a title, Tristan Harris became a leader in a movement to make technology more humane. He didn't wait for permission. He saw a problem, spoke up, and showed the world that real leadership doesn't always come with a corner office. And that's just a short example to kick us off today into what is a really interesting discussion. And if you've been around long enough, quite possibly something that you've experienced before, albeit in a slightly different context to the Tristan example that we gave there. So that example really dealt with a situation where somebody saw a need, had a moral conviction, and stepped up to the plate and ended up having a pretty significant impact because of their willingness to lead from the front despite having a title. But what was on my mind this week is, what about a situation where you are looked to as a leader in your organization simply because you know things? Maybe you've been around a long time. You know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. And this often happens with experience. What do I mean by that? I mean, people look to you in this leadership capacity or through a leadership lens simply because You have more experience than anybody else. This can arise where, you've been at a company for a while, and as tends to happen, the revolving door, people come, people go. And then after 5 years or so, oftentimes you can be a fairly senior and knowledgeable person within an organization, not necessarily because of status, but just because you have some real deep familiarity with the inner workings of that organization. And when people who haven't been around as long as you have questions about how things work, naturally you are one of the main people that they'll go to because you have those answers. And often it results in you being treated like a leader, and it can leave you thinking, hey, I should be getting paid like a leader. I virtually am one. But I wanted to interrogate this a little bit more because I've experienced it as well. Now, more experience can indeed mean more answers to questions that people have about business-related matters. That is undoubtedly true. Essentially, you're a great source of information that other people less experienced than you can tap into. But there's a few things that I want to consider if you are in that headspace where you think, look, I should be being paid for this. And the first thing is that really what leadership looks like? Is leadership knowing things and being familiar with the business because you've been around a bit longer than everybody else? Or is there a little bit more to it? And I am of the view that there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more to people leadership than simply knowing a lot about how the organization works because you've been there longer than most people. What if I told you that I think knowing a lot about an organization, having a good level of experience in a place and being the go-to person that your colleagues come and ask for things because, as I said, you know where the bodies are buried, so to speak. What if I told you that that's just a good start? A springboard, if you like, but no more than that. What if I told you that to be a people leader, you need to do a lot more than just know a lot about your organization? You need to know not just a lot about your organization and the industry that it operates in, but you need to know a lot about the people that work there. You need to know a lot about personalities and how they tick. You need to know how to motivate. You need to know how to teach, how to grow, how to develop people and the business as well. You need to know how to have those difficult conversations with underperforming staff. And believe me, in a leadership role, that will absolutely happen. And the only reason it won't happen is if you avoid it. It's part and parcel of the job. Leadership is, for the most part, invisible to the untrained eye. I'll say that again. Much of leadership, good people leadership, is invisible to the untrained eye. How do you quantify what a great leader does? How do you timesheet it? Because it's a lot more than just knowing how to answer questions about the business. It's a lot more than knowing the politics of the place and the inner workings of the place. You have to have a deep expertise in people and behavioural tendencies. Why? Because if you don't have that expertise, you will struggle to lead and manage people. And you will struggle to build and maintain a great workplace culture, in addition to all the other aspects of leadership in a business environment, such as building a customer base, such as attracting new clients, such as practicing sound financial management, and all those other disciplines that come along with leading a team and leading a business. So I wanted to delve into that a little bit today because I was in that position where I was looked to as what I thought was a leader. But in actual fact, I just knew a lot about the organisation I worked in because I'd been there longer than everybody else. And I interpreted people coming to me and asking me for advice on business-related issues as leadership. But in actual fact, now that I'm many years further down the road and more experienced and have actually led teams for years now, I realise that leadership is a heck of a lot more than just people coming to you and asking questions. So yes, it's a good springboard, it's a good step, but understand if you are in that position and you're starting to think to yourself, I'm being gypped here, I'm being ripped off, I'm a people leader, I should be being paid more. What I would encourage you to do is understand that it's a great start. It's a sign that you've stuck it out. You've shown resilience, you've shown discipline because you stayed somewhere for long enough to have these answers, and people are trusting you because they're coming to you. That's great. Don't be ashamed of that. I don't want to put you down. I don't want to take away from the achievement that is, because it is an achievement. You have to earn that respect. But understand that if you want to lead people in an official context and you want to be paid for that role and have the title, then you need to understand and perform all of the duties that come with that title. And believe me, as I just illustrated, there are many, many more complex issues and nuanced skill sets that you will need to either possess or develop really quickly if you are to do that job and to do it well. And I do think that that is one of the reasons why podcasts like this need to exist, because there is, I believe, a lack of understanding about what great people leadership looks like. You know it when you're being led by someone fantastic, and you certainly know what bad leadership looks like when you're being led by someone who isn't so great. But how can you quantify it and measure it? That is a little more difficult. But what is a great place to start is by perhaps meditating on some of those things, some of those more nuanced points that I raised with respect to understanding people, how to motivate, how to teach, how to grow and develop them, and how to have those unpleasant conversations, in addition to all the other wonderful things that people leadership brings. Guys, I hope that helps. Thank you so much for joining me once again. If you're getting value from the show, like, share, subscribe on whatever podcast platform that you listen to me on. Thank you so much, guys, for your diligent listenership. And why don't you share the show with a couple of friends and spread the word, if you would be so kind. That'd be fantastic. Until next time, crew, I'll say goodbye.